As we all know, I'm masterful when it comes to debating myself. Because Prismatic Evolutions is a special set with very few new cards, I decided to combine my usual top 10 decks video into one, saving you time and costing me money. Wait, do I care more about my viewers than ad revenue? But I'm a YouTuber, that can't be right. Anyways, despite Prismatic Evolutions giving us EX Pokemon for every evolution, the Pokemon Company forgot to make them good. Instead, they focused on making beautiful arts that people will spend thousands of dollars trying to pull from packs because they still have FOMO from Evolving Skies and think the magic will repeat itself. So for top tier competitive players like you and me, the number of changes is minimal. But if you watch my top 10 cards video, you know that 2 cards from the set will have a major impact on standard. I'm of course talking about Budew and Regigigas. I'll get to Regi in a second, but first we have to focus on Budew, which frankly I'm tired of talking about. It's a 30 hit point baby Pokemon with free retreat that does 10 damage for free and item locks. The main items you're shutting off are rare candy and Pokemon search cards, specifically slowing down evolution decks. Ironically, every evolution deck will use Budew, creating a scenario where both players do 10 damage to each other for several turns, hoping to draw into what they need. The easiest way to get around Budew is with TM evolution, including more Stage 1 Pokemon in your Stage 2 deck. Obviously, decks like Dragapult EX and Gardevoir EX don't have to worry about Budew as much since they rely heavily on their Stage 1s, but Charizard might want another Charmeleon in there. And while I doubt Grandtree will see any sort of sustained use in Stage 2 decks, it is a great way to nullify the effects of Budew. It's just a case of, being able to find your one of Stadium when you're under item lock. First up, let's look at how old decks change with the release of Budew using Japanese tournament results as a guide. The best decks that can all take advantage of one copy of Budew are Ceruledge EX, Charizard EX, Dragapult EX, Gardevoir EX, Hydreigon EX, and Regidrago V-Star. If you haven't noticed the theme, they're all evolution decks. The goal with Budew is that if you go second, you can get a free item lock while you set up. And if your opponent went first and struggled to do anything turn 1, Budew shuts off their chances to get back in the game, preventing an Arven for Buddy-Buddy Poffin or Precious Trolley to find basics. When it comes to updating most older deck lists, chuck in a copy of Budew and you're good to go. For Stage 2 decks though, you might have to get a little creative. Starting with Ceruledge EX, it adds 1 Budew since it doesn't really do anything turn 1 going second. Just be aware that if they KO your Budew, the odds of you being able to play Briar in that game go down drastically. Unless of course you play Legacy Energy. I've also seen an uptick in Monkey Dory with Ceruledge in Japan because it allows you to take a free KO on Budew if one of your Pokemon has 3 damage counters on it. Not only does Charizard EX add a copy of Budew, but Grandtree is seeing more play than ever. That being said, you won't Grandtree into Charizard EX as that means its ability won't activate. Instead, you use it to get Pidgeot EX or Dusknoir. And don't forget that a Dusclops can one-shot Budew, giving each of you a prize, putting you closer to Briar and Radiant Charizard plays. Dragapult EX is an interesting one. Not only does it play the Budew to buy itself that turn, but lists in Japan are starting to run Lance. This means you're still able to keep drawing into your dragons even under item lock. Though again, Dracloak mitigates some of that stress. Gardevoir EX of course adds Budew to buy itself that turn. However, when I've played against Guardy, they always have the turn 1 going second Poffin and TM Evolution, so Budew is just a safety precaution. As for KOing your opponent's Budew, Monkey Dory fits the bill, same with the Ralts from base set that does 30 damage, and Cresselia that snipes damage counters. Hydreigon EX is a great example of what Stage 2 decks have to do in a Budew world. 2 copies of the Stage 1, a copy of Pidgeotto, and TM Evolution. Unfortunately, this is just what you'll have to do until, hopefully, people decide Budew isn't worth it and remove the card from their deck. Regidrago V-Star is an odd case. While it's super popular over here, in Japan it doesn't get much love. From what I could find, it does add 1 Budew since Regidrago is an evolution deck. The interesting part comes from not being able to use Energy Switch. Regidrago kinda needs it. So if you're looking to play around Budew, Crispin is your main answer, able to accelerate energy from deck while also grabbing a different type of energy and putting it into your hand. You'll still need to attach to a Regidrago V turn 1 to make that happen, but it's a way around item lock at least. Otherwise, you can run a copy of Poppy, which is basically a double Energy Switch. So to quickly recap these changes to old decks in a Budew world, Charizard EX wants to run Grandtree to get Pidgeot EX into play quickly. The 60 hit point Charmander is an easy way to KO Budew, except it puts itself in Dusclops range. Dragapult EX wants Lance to grab dragons from the deck, every Stage 2 deck needs TM Evolution, and Regidrago needs to play either Crispin or Poppy to keep doing the thing. I know it seems like Budew is the most evil card ever printed, but don't forget that it only has 30 hit points and can be KO'd by something like 151 Hitmonchan via its ability. Or it's easy pickings for a Brute Bonnet plus Radiant Sneasler Poison combo. Budew's meant to buy you time, not win you the game. Unless you want to use Budew as the only attacker, then it can win you the game. To that end, what about decks focused on Budew as the main attacker? Similar to Venomoth Frostlass, Budew Frostlass has pretty much the same strategy of item locking and pinging damage counters, with the added benefit of being able to spread more damage with Munkidori. There's many small changes you can make to the list, but the core strategy remains the same. Shut off their items with Budew, rack up damage with Frostlass, and attach return to Munkidori, healing it with its ability and moving damage to your opponent's Pokemon. Then at the very end of the game, put Radiant Charizard on the field and swing for 250 damage. The truly uncultured among you will call this a stall deck. In reality, it's just an annoying deck. You will notice a lack of accompanying flute. If you find your opponent isn't benching enough Pokemon for you to destroy, throw a couple of them in here to really annoy them. Because Prismatic Evolutions is such a non-competitive set, this video is going to be weird. Well, weirder than normal. Instead of going down the line and showing you the actual best new, old, and rogue decks, I'm just showing you decks. How you want to classify them is up to you. There's 4 decks that all get better with the addition of Regigigas. They are Chien-Pao EX, Lost Box, Lugia V-Star, and anything with Metang. In case you've forgotten, Reggie does 330 damage to a Terra Pokemon for 4 colorless energy, meaning it can slot right into any deck with energy acceleration, which all 4 of them have. With Chien-Pao, you add a single copy of Reggie to the list. Whereas Chien-Pao would normally need 6 energy to one-shot a Charizard EX or Dragapult EX, Reggie only needs 4, and it's a single prizer. Though, because of Budew, I'm thinking Chien-Pao will struggle next format. In Lost Box, Reggie doesn't outright replace Pikachu EX because Pikachu EX does 300 damage to anybody. Remember, Reggie only does 330 damage to Terra Pokemon, which are everywhere, but not everywhere all at once. You will have to be smart in Lost Box because there's only 4 Mirage Gate. So if they don't have a Terra, don't waste your acceleration on Reggie, because at that point it's a worse Cramorant. For Lugia V-Star, Reggie almost replaces Cinccino. You'll still want at least a 1-1 line of Cinccino come Prismatic Evolutions, but Reggie helps Lugia surprise your opponent at a key moment with a huge KO using a single prizer. On a side note, the new Minccino that's slightly better than the current Minccino isn't releasing in Prismatic Evolutions. It's not a big loss since it only did 20 damage for a single energy, but it's still weird that the Pokemon Company is holding it back to a post-rotation set when the only real partner is rotating. And finally, Metang. It offers constant energy acceleration, and Regigigas gives the deck a way to deal 330 damage to a Terra for 4 energy. Heatran's still amazing, but it would need 7 energy to do that, and it discards the energy after attacking. As much as I wish I could say a solo Regi deck has some merit, the fact that it only does 100 damage to non-Terra Pokemon makes it non-viable. If you want to whack off alone in your room though, Reggie can take advantage of several other cards, including Glass Trumpet and Heavy Baton, allowing you to power it up quickly and preserve some of that energy. If you're looking to build an Evolution deck come Prismatic Evolutions, Flareon EX is going to be the headliner. And best of all, you get a free Flareon EX deck with Eevee EX for simply booting up Pokemon TCG Live between January 16th and March 27th. Let's start with how to actually play Flareon optimally. First up, Evolving Eevee. There's 3 different Eevee cards you can use. Eevee EX is important for any Evolution deck you want to build, as it's a Terra Pokemon, meaning you can use Glass Trumpet to accelerate energy from the discard pile to any colorless Pokemon on your bench. That's a must because the Eevee from Surging Sparks can evolve at any point, provided it's in the active. So you Glass Trumpet to the benched Eevee, move it into the active, evolve into Flareon EX, and use Burning Charge to accelerate 2 basic energy from deck to one of your Pokemon. Or if your turn is really strong, you can Carnelian for 280 and maybe take a KO. As an added bonus, we have the Resonant Evolution Eevee from Astral Radiance. If you evolve the boosted Evolution Eevee with this guy in play, you can then freely search your deck for any Evolution and slap it onto that one. Just be aware that Resonant Evolution won't activate if you evolve Eevee EX, and you also can't evolve Eevee EX right away. Okay, now that we can easily get Flareon EX into play, what then? Well, when it comes to the Ace spec, there's 2 trains of thought, going for consistency or going for one-shots. Starting with one-shots, use Maximum Belt. Because Carnelian, as well as Jolteon and Vaporeon's second attacks only do 280 damage, you'll need a Maximum Belt to add that plus 50 damage to one-hit KO in Archaludon EX, Dragapult EX, or Charizard EX. Otherwise, Sparkling Crystal should be the Ace spec of choice. With it, you don't have to worry about using Glass Trumpet turn once you attacked with Flareon. Instead, you attach the crystal, attach an energy, evolve Eevee, and you're good to go. But this is part of the problem with Flareon, it's an either or. And if you've ever had to choose between left foot or right foot, you know the agony of such decisions. Unlike Charizard, which doesn't have to rely on an A-Spec to save it, Flareon kinda does. Getting to the list, I'll cover 3 of them, with the first featuring Jolteon EX. There's nothing too crazy about it. For a Lightning and a Colorless, it can deal up to 240 damage if you discard 2 basic energy from your bench Pokemon. Hitting for a Lightning weakness is decent, but Jolteon can't carry you like a backpack filled with lotion. I think Noctowl is just a great card to pair with any Flareon EX deck. Eevee EX activates it, so too do the other evolutions, and Fan Rotom can take you to Hooters. I made this first list as simple as possible. You have Magma Basin, Glass Trumpet, Crispin, and Sparkling Crystal to help you attack on turn 1 with Flareon EX or Jolteon EX. Yes, you sacrifice the power a Maximum Belt build would provide, but maybe you can win by going fast. If you want a powerful build of Flareon Jolteon, go with this one. It's got Maximum Belt, Regigigas, and Radiant Charizard, giving you plenty of ways to take big one-hit KOs. The Regi might seem a bit weird until you remember Flareon can accelerate to it, or you can use Glass Trumpet to build it up. You could always swap in Prime Catcher as your A-Spec while adding Fezandipity for more card draw or Ursaluna as another attacker, but whatever you do, the fact remains the same. Flareon EX won't be a Tier 1 or Tier 2 or maybe even a Tier 3 deck, so keep your expectations low. Speaking of keeping your expectations low, which is what I tell anyone on Tinder who swipes right on me, we have Flareon with Leafeon EX. Leafeon does 60 damage times the number of energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Since they need just 5 energy in play for you to deal 300 damage, this has a lot of potential, but there are ways for them to play around it, namely not flooding the field with energy, so surprising them will be key. Admittedly, this list is a little boring. It's basically just taking the Jolteon build and swapping in Leafeon. Of course, you could always go for a build with one Jolteon EX and one Leafeon EX because they do share somewhat similar energy requirements for their second attack. And Leafeon's secondary attack is what this next strange list I found in Japan used. For a Grass, Fire, and Water, Leafeon EX does 230 damage and heals 100 damage from each of your bench Pokemon. Well, there's this Slowbro that takes damage counters from your other Pokemon. Attach a Hero Escape to Leafeon, tank a hit, move the damage counters with your Slowbro, heal with Leafeon's attack, rinse and repeat. Obviously, this combo will work maybe 10% of the time. I mean, there's plenty of decks that can deal 370 damage in one-shot Leafeon. But if they can't, well, you get to spend 20 minutes moving damage counters on PTCGL until they get bored and concede. And finally, what if we just chucked every evolution into a single deck? Will it be good? Of course not. But I can already taste the YouTube title that will entice kids to click on my channel. Then I'll suck them in with my witty banter and clever jokes, force them to buy my merch that's just a regular t-shirt with a couple letters glued on. Using Glass Trumpet on Eevee and Eevee EX as the energy accelerator, this enables you to use any evolution. I would say use any evolution effectively, but that would be a lie and I'm TrustYourPilot. As for the other 4 new evolutions I haven't covered, they suck. If you get lucky and they don't have Manaphy or Terra Pokemon on the bench, Vaporeon can spread 60 damage to all of their V and EX Pokemon. That then sets them up for Glaceon EX, who can one-shot any Pokemon with exactly 6 damage counters on it, but it requires a Grass, Water, and Darkness. This makes it much worse than Kingambit, which I featured in a recent video. As for Umbreon and Espeon, they each have some utility. Umbreon does 160 and confuses, that's okay, I guess. The second attack, meanwhile, discards all energy and takes a prize card. That's horrible, unless it's the end of the game and you have 1 prize remaining. Espeon's an interesting one. Unlike de-evolution, which puts the Pokemon back into their hand, Espeon devolves all their Pokemon and puts the highest stage into their deck. So a late game Iono plus Amazes could be amazing. Or they have Mew EX and Fezandipity EX on the field and they just get whatever they need and you lose anyways. Here's the monstrosity that is in every evolution deck. The baby Jolteon does 180 damage to EX and V Pokemon as a single prizer with free retreat, so it's great to have. Obviously, there's some evolutions you'd want to cut to make room for things like experience share and, good cards, but then it wouldn't be wacky enough. And that's it. Normally, I'd put deck lists in the description for everything featured in this video. Because YouTube has a character limit, you'll find limitless links in the description for the decks that just added Budew or Regigigas. For the Flareon decks, though, you will find lists in the description that can be copied and pasted into live when Prismatic Evolutions launches on Thursday. And since the free deck at Tier 0 of the new Battle Pass is automatically added to your collection, you'll already own a lot of the cards needed to build an evolution deck. Ultimately, the changes you need to make for Prismatic Evolutions are simple. If it's an evolution deck, put in a copy of Budew. If it's a deck with energy acceleration, put in a copy of Regigigas. For those of you looking for other good new decks to play when Prismatic Evolutions is out on the 16th in Pokemon TCG Live, well, there aren't any. Flareon EX does appear to have the best chance of success, though that's a longer stretch than Hitmonlee putting its toes into my mouth.